lot of companies, when I speak to them, they're talking more about, consumers going online and placing their order, and then they can pick up the product. They're pushing this idea more and more. And so I want to know what you think, that if a majority or like even 50% of the sales are coming through online platforms, what purpose does the actual physical store serve, or what will it serve in the future for travel retail?
Okay, God, that is a big question with a very involved answer. I'll try and keep it simple. Where do you start? Right. What's the purpose of physical space, basically? First of all, to say that in the future, and when I say future, I could mean tomorrow, I could mean in 5 years' time, depends on the consumer. But increasingly, your consumers are not going to distinguish between online and offline. It's one and the same thing. People flip from online to offline in milliseconds. They're not going to distinguish. They're not going to say, oh, you're an online retailer and you're an offline retailer, or you are now giving me an online experience or an offline experience. It's one experience. And as more and more online shopping happens in store through various platforms and technologies, you're going to see that the online shopping will depend on the offline experience as well, not just for fulfillment. So let's park that for a second. The second thing to say, which I think is, maybe I should have said it first because it introduces the answer to the question, is that retail has been and will always be about four things. It will be about recruitment, transaction, fulfillment, and retention. Recruit a customer, sell them something, product or service, get it to them, fulfillment, and get them to come back, retention. What's interesting is that transaction and fulfillment are moving steadily outside the physical space. Shops are being used less and less for transaction, less and less for distribution of goods. Okay, and therefore, and I'm generalizing and I'm being a little bit provocative. There's always going to be exceptions, and there's always going to be transactional retail. You're always going to have in an airport a place you're going to buy your water, your newspaper, your chewing gum, your book, or whatever it is. And there's going to be this other kind of retail, which is going to be about recruiting customers, experience. The big question is, and the $1 million question is, how much? What is the proportion? At the moment, it's 99% transactional. Okay, and the same questions, and we're having the same debate in shopping centres and high streets. I'm not sure if you read, but I've been appointed to the UK government's High Street Task Force board.
Okay, yeah? Yes.
So that's an important kind of body, because we're discussing the future of high streets and our urban environments at a countrywide level. And the reason I mention this, because we're grappling with the same issues. So if therefore we accept that more and more retail, physical space, is going to be for recruiting customers and less for transaction, that means that the retail space, the physical space, is behaving more like a media brand and less like a trading place, less like a transactional place. So if it's behaving more and more like a media brand, that changes the paradigm. It changes everything. It changes the design of the place. It changes the service proposition. It changes the technology. It changes the master plan. But much more importantly, it changes the revenue model and it changes the rent model. And in the domestic market, it changes the valuation model, because real estate in the domestic market is valued against the length of leases and the covenant on the lease. If you're a media brand, you're not going to go, if you're using the physical space as a media platform, you're not going to sign a 5-year lease with an upward only rent, which is what the traditional way of doing it is. So what I'm saying is that if we're going to use more and more of the physical space for recruitment, then that the commercial zone of an airport is going to change. In part, it's going to be more flexible. And to answer your original question, what difference, how can we improve the experience? And this is part of that answer as well. It's going to be more flexible, more programmable. It's going to be very ephemeral. It's going to be here today, gone tomorrow, more exciting. It's going to be demountable, reconfigurable. It's going to feel more like a stage set and an exhibition than a physical piece of real estate. In a word, and the way I describe it in many of the presentations I give, we need to create serendipity machines. We need to create experiences that are serendipitous, meaning customers feel they've had a happy coincidence. They didn't plan this. They came across it because it was like, wow. Now, if the physical space is going to be used like a media brand, and the brands and the retailers are not going to sell through that physical space as much as they are now, we have therefore, and the challenge of airports, and I don't have the answer to this question, but the challenge we've all got to find the answer to is, how do we value it? In the past, the value of X square meters of a physical space has been based on how much turnover you do through the tills, or its square footage, its size. So you have a MAG model, a minimum annual guarantee rent, plus a turnover share. And the MAG is based on the square meterage, space, or its location. And the turnover share is based on the turnover. So if you've got less and less turnover, and you're using your space as a media platform to recruit customers, that means you're definitely not going to have a lot of turnover, but also you're not dependent on the size of the space. You know, because you can make a media impact with 1 square meter, or with 100 square meters.
Yeah.
What is the media impact? We have got to measure the impact in terms of media, what we call media impressions. So how many and what type of media impression does having a physical space drive? And what I mean by that is, if a brand has a physical space in an airport, how many Instagram followers does it drive? Does it lead to? What we call the halo effect. How many shares? How much online sales does it drive? So that's transactional, but not in the physical space. And many of those online sales may well happen in the physical space, but not through the till. And now let's move to the future a little bit. I'm talking next, say, 3 years. We're in deep conversations with tech business about 5G. 5G is going to change the paradigm. So when 5G arrives, it's going to do 2 things. One of them is obvious. The other one is very, very controversial. And I think it's the elephant in the room, or the Zoom. And the first one is, we're going to have what we call ambient retail. Image recognition. 5G will drive image recognition very, very differently. You'll be able to photograph something and buy it instantly in the platform you're photographing it. Let's say Instagram. And we know Instagram will become a shopping channel. So you'll be able to photograph someone's rucksack walking through the terminal and buy it there and then, because the image recognition will be so powerful. So if you can do that, where does it leave the physical space?
Yeah.
Someone selling Johnny Walker Red Label on meter after meter in what I call light box retailing will feel like a dinosaur. So we have got to move, and this is this is what distinguishes, I think, people that own retail brands that emotionally connect to customers and traders. We've got to move from what used to be a great thing, which is responding to customers, find out what they want and respond, being a responsive business, to being a predictive business. Now, if image recognition and 5G is not at the top of the agenda of the board of directors of all the retail operators in airports, what are they doing?
But is it?